Welcome to the weekly Wednesday Wisdom Call. My name is Marty Forrest. My website is Hello Extraordinary Life. If you have not been there yet and you're still listening to the recordings for however you find them on YouTube, they're on YouTube now, through Facebook. They're also on Podbean, which is where I'm hosting them now. Go to the website, helloextraordinarylife.com, grab your free ebook, 3 Steps to Reprogramming Your Negative Self-Talk. There's a contact me page if you know you're ready to get going and get working on the inside, transforming the things that are no longer serving you in your life and you need help, because sometimes we just don't know what to do and we need some guidance. I don't know about y'all, but when I started this journey, I didn't know. I only knew what I knew, so I needed some help to help me discover the other parts or new behaviors or ways of being to make significant alterations in my world to become different and behave different, because I only knew what I grew up with. So that's what I get to help others with now. Today we're talking about our signature behaviors, the things that we know are no longer working, they no longer serve us, and yet we still do them. Maybe to some varying degree. You know, we may not do them as hardcore as we've always done them. I know mine is significantly less. But we all have something that we default to, and it may be several things. It may not just be one. You have one primary, generally speaking, and then there's other things that we do that will show up. And that it's what we know. That default behavior is something that we do to help protect ourselves. It's when we get triggered or we have something showing up in our life where the same feeling gets generated, whether it's I feel threatened, I feel unsafe, I feel rejected, abandoned. There's all kinds of things that look and feel the same, whether they are or not. We're not living fully present to the now because we still label it what we relate to. And then our behavior kicks in. And I was listening to someone who said, you know, this negative thing in her head just goes off, this judgment, and why, how do I change that and what do I do with it? Well, once it gets going, once we're in it, we have a whole body reaction, a whole chemical reaction that's happening in our body. And until we begin to look, shine some light on it, or begin to get curious about it, take a moment to pause, we allow it to run amok because we don't know anything else. There's nothing wrong. We just don't know how to do something else. Which is the point of this. How do we do something else when we know? First of all, identify what it is. What triggers you? And when you get triggered, what do I do? What do you do? Do you eat? Do you look for someone else to soothe you? Do you get angry, depressed, isolate, shut down? I've never done all those. I've probably done all of those at least once or more because something gets triggered. Personally, my default is anger. It's what I know well. It's what I'm comfortable with. It's what's familiar. There are several others that will show up. When, I'll just tell my personal experiences, when I get triggered by something or if I feel rejected too many times in a relationship, I just systematically start shutting down and closing off to the other person. This is my MO, it's what I've done. And first of all, I didn't make good choices. Second of all, when I do that, I don't leave it open to go anywhere else. So now I'm shutting down systematically in my relationships until I leave them. Maybe you can relate to that. Maybe not. Maybe yours is something else. Maybe it's depression. Maybe you turn that anger all inward. Maybe you just go and eat to soothe the emotional state. Whatever it is, it's probably not working at this point. And now you're beginning to see. I do this thing, it's not serving me, and I don't know what else to do. Well, if you figure out what it is first step, right? We know we get triggered by something. We know that we have a fear of being abandoned, let's just say. Then what happens? Now we become needy. We look to someone else to make us feel okay because we think they're going to leave us. And then we create that. We create the situation. We're trying to fix something that we don't know how to fix with the same thing that created the brokenness, or it's not broken, but the wounded part. We're trying to fix it with the same thing that got us there. That doesn't really work. I have never experienced it working. The saying I've been seeing most lately is the same brain that got me here is not going to fix it. And a lot of it's because we're triggered, we're in the emotions and the chemical reaction in the body. Begin looking. First step, begin looking. Get curious. What is going on with me? Why am I pulling away? And what can I do different? If I'm afraid of being abandoned, first of all, I abandoned myself. You've abandoned yourself. Nobody can abandon us, really. But if nobody's ever been there for us, then we don't know how to do that for ourselves either. First step, how do we learn to be there for ourselves and stop abandoning ourselves emotionally? If you grew up in a home where somebody was not emotionally available, they've emotionally abandoned you. Maybe they physically abandoned you. Maybe they died, or they moved away, or they divorced. They've left somehow. Now our own role here today is to learn how to soothe ourselves, learn how to care for ourselves, learn how to make ourselves feel safe and emotionally present for ourselves. If you can't do it for yourself, nobody else can do it for you either. And that's true of any behavior that we default to. If I'm always angry, I've now put a buffer there. If I'm always depressed, it's my buffer, right? I'm buffering myself. You're buffering yourself from life. If I'm always turning to food, what am I trying to soothe inside of me? And then learn how to soothe that for yourself. What do you need to feel safe? What do you need to feel those emotions that feel terrifying or really scary to feel sometimes? Sometimes we don't even know what we're feeling, and there are no words for it because there are no words. They're just feelings. Sitting with it, the feeling, when it gets triggered, instead of reacting the way that you always do. Sit with it. Be with it. Be with yourself. Be present for yourself. So you can be clear what you're actually feeling underneath. There's always something under the default. If it's anger or food or depression, isolation, there's always something under it. It's getting under it. It's sitting with it. It's being with it. Being present to it. I say it, and the words sound easy. It's not. Somebody told me one time, sit with it until you're on the other side of it, and scared the shit out of me because I didn't know what I was going to be on the other side of it. Am I ever going to come out of it? Am I ever going to stop feeling afraid or stop feeling sad or grieving when my dad died? Am I ever going to stop feeling that? Yes. Evidence shows me. Evidence will show you. We do stop feeling it. This too shall pass. We can't hold on to any one emotion forever unless we decide to stay in it. If we want to keep perpetuating the same behavior and the same circumstances, we will. We'll keep recreating that. You're here and you're listening to this, so I know that you're wanting to do something else. So write it out. When I got through my anger underneath it, was a whole lot of sadness. I had some judgment, and there was some fear that I can't make a difference or that I'm powerless over different circumstances. And that may or may not be true, but the anger keeps me in my unconscious mind thinking that I'm safe there. I'm safer behind the anger than to feel the feeling. And maybe you feel safer to eat the food or to turn to someone else to comfort you than to feel what you're feeling. Maybe it is more comfortable. It's familiar. That's what makes it comfortable. So now it's about that comfortable being uncomfortable, because when we're uncomfortable is when we're actually starting to grow and to feel something else besides what's familiar. The only way out, the only through and out to the other side is through. That's been my experience. Then what do we do with it? What do we do with those feelings that we're discovering? How do we take care of ourselves? How do we learn to love ourselves? How do we stop doing the thing that we do? It's a process, one step at a time. Maybe once you realize what your behavior is, you decide beforehand what you want to do different. So you have a plan. Instead of turning to food, what am I going to put in place of that? When I'm reaching for the cookie, am I reaching for the cookie because I want to eat the cookie or because I'm trying to cover something up? If I'm trying to cover something up, then what am I going to do instead? Because if I wait till I'm in it and I'm going to eat the cookie, I'm going to eat the cookie. But if I have a plan about what I'm going to do different, then I can implement the plan. Just one thing. If I'm turning to another person to make me feel okay, then maybe I can ask myself, put this in place and ask myself, what do I really need right now? What's really going to help me feel safe or loved or have some compassion? How can I give this to myself instead of looking externally for that? It's not a wrong thing to look outside of ourselves. It just doesn't always work when we're looking for it to fill up something that's inside of us that's empty. If I'm feeling empty on the inside, like there's a missing and I'm trying to look to you to fill it, as we know, that rarely, never, I'll say never, it never works. If we're hurting and we need a hug, that's different than trying to get filled up from the outside. So what can I offer myself? What can you do for yourself when you want to go seek someone else to fill your insides? And decide before you get there. Because we already know what the trigger is, or we already know what the behavior is. It's like when we go to the gym, do we just walk around and look at what machine I want to do? Sometimes I do that. If I go to the gym, I don't do that very often, but if I go to the gym, sometimes I do that. I look at the machines. What am I going to do today? It's always helpful to have a plan. I've been told a meal plan. I don't meal plan either. And then it's always, what's for dinner tonight? That's the endless question. When we make a plan, it seems to, we can implement it easier than trying to figure out in the moment. Depression is a whole other ballgame. If it's a circumstantial depression, then there's some things you can put into place. If it's a chemical thing, I'm not a doctor. I don't have the answer for that. I can't really answer that question, or I can give you some tools that I know of, but that's a whole other conversation. But I do know that it can be sometimes. What I will say about depression is sometimes we call sadness and grief depression, and it's really sadness and grief in that. So there's some distinctions in there. So figuring out what that is for you. For the defensiveness, let's say we get defensive automatically when you feel like someone's asking too many questions or they want to know too much about you, and we just automatically come at them defensively. I know people who do this. What can you do different? If you know you get defensive, sometimes it's as simple as shooting the question back to them rather than feeling like it's none of their business. Or you could simply say, I don't really feel like telling you that. Right? But if you come up with what you want to return with, then I cannot have to be defensive about it. In all of this, what is all of this? It's all about being authentic with ourselves, being true to ourselves, being honest with ourselves. And that's some of when I coach with people, that's some of what I do is help them discover what that is for themselves, because sometimes we just don't know. That's another one. As I said that's another one I used to do, and I hear people do it today. I'll ask a question, and I don't know. And that's definitely a protective mechanism. I did it a lot. So I just flashed on that as I said the words. Because the truth is we do know when we sit with it long enough. The I don't know came out of, no matter what I said, it was going to be the wrong answer with my parenting. So I don't know was a safety mechanism. And I really didn't. In that moment, I really didn't. My mind would go blank. And when I've talked with people, it happens to them the same way. And often for the same reason. It's another way of protecting ourselves and being a form of defense. And we probably don't know in the moment. But when we sit with it for a minute or two or three, or maybe the answer then is, let me get back to you. Because our automatic response is, I don't know. Let me think about it. And then really come back and give an answer. Those are some of the ways, some of the things to begin to do different. And I've talked long enough. Anybody have anything they want to got out of that? Anything you're taking away from today?
Awesome job, Marty. Thank you.
Thank you.
I realize that I probably have several things going on. More than one.
Yes.
So I was really concentrating on one, and then when you kind of brought that up, and I was just sitting there while I'm driving thinking about it, and I said, oh, yeah, no, there's that, and then there's that, and then there's that. And I go, well, let's leave it at that.
Yes. Here's what I tell people when we're looking to make different choices is to pick one thing to focus on at a time. Just pick one and focus on that one at a time, and then the next one, and they'll start to fall into place. It'll just naturally cascade into the next thing that you want to do. as a ripple effect.
I did find myself prioritizing them in that category.
I love it. That's awesome.
I just wanted to thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here today. It's good to hear you.
Happy spring.
Thank you. Miss Lisa, did you get anything out of that?
Just repeat lessons on everything you've taught me over the past few years.
Well, good.
But I've seen how much I've grown through all that too, and the different reactions and the different acting out, and so I am able to see the growth.
Good.
But damn it, I'm not cured yet.
Dang it! When I get the cure, I will certainly be sharing with everybody. Yeah. No quick fix here. Through it all. Walking through it. Yes. Thank you all for being here.